Okay, this one's about kind of rebuilding this fitting that goes on the 292 cubic inch motor on the 55 Bird. This is the thermostat housing, and of course I started doing this after I started doing the repair, so I can't find all the parts as it originally was. But if you look here, this is where this tubing here was mounted. Now, it pressed in there like that, and I just cut it off, but it was also brazed, so obviously it had leaked at some point and somebody brazed it. But that fits in like that. The end of this that stuck out was very corroded and really could not get a seal with the bypass hose goes between the water pump and this housing. And so I pressed this out, which, you know, you just knock it out with a bolt. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this. I'm going to put 3/8 pipe thread here. I'm going to put this fitting in there. Now, this fitting I've had laying around the house for the last 30 years. I finally have a use for it. But it's going to fit in there like that. And I'm going to thread it in with a pipe tap, and we'll use tapered thread on that, and we'll see how that works. Okay, I've got the tap started in there. It really is about the right size for 3/8 pipe. So I didn't even have to drill it out or anything. It's pretty much the right size. So I'm going to go ahead and tap this in, and I'll show you what it's like when it's done. Okay, I've got the thread cut in, and one of the things you got to be careful about is, you see, this fitting is going to have a stop right there. So if you put the threads in too far, you're going to meet the stop before the threads jam together. And so you got to be kind of careful about how many threads you put in this thing. This actually worked out just about perfect. I've got pipe dope on it now. Now it's jamming up pretty quick now. Okay, that's pretty good. So that should fit on the bypass hose. Now I'm going to take a look at another part of this. Now, earlier there's an awful lot of corrosion on this thing, and so what I did is I took a file and tried to get this as flat as I could. This is not really easy to do, but it was so corroded that I don't think it could ever seal until it was smoothed down. So I went ahead and smoothed it down, got it as even as I could, and new gasket and thermostat, and we should be back in business on this thing. I could have replaced this fitting. It's kind of expensive, and I'm not real thrilled with some of the repro parts. They're not really very high quality, and so if I could save this thing, I wanted to do so. And by tapping that bypass and smoothing this off, I think it's going to work out okay. Okay, here's our fancy new thermostat. That goes in there like that. This gasket, it's kind of interesting, has glue on one side, and you peel the backing off and you just put it on there. Okay, this backing is supposed to actually stick on there. This gasket's probably been sitting around too long, so it doesn't. It just kind of falls back off. I'm going to put a little bit of gasket sealer on that side to see if I can hold that in place. Okay, we're going to go ahead and install this thing. One of the things I like to do is I put a little silicone on the male fitting because hose fittings seem to seal better if I do it that way. Also, notice that when I put the bolts in, I usually use a little bit of silicone on those too. Okay, one of the things I'm doing here, I've just got these bolts down tight, or not tight, but just down a little bit. I'm feeling that thermostat because when you put it in, it's kind of hard to get it in there with the bypass tube and everything. And if you're not careful, you'll either get it too high or too low, usually too low. And what it'll do, it'll interfere with the seal on the bottom down there. And so I have got it to where I can move it just a little bit so I know it's about right. Now I can proceed and tighten up these fittings. Okay, now what I've done there is I put silicone on that fitting for the radiator hose too, just on the male side, and so when you put it on, you should not have any leaks. I've had a lot of leaks in these hoses when I didn't use silicone, so I always do anymore.